He currently contributes articles on old British TV shows and films to cultbritannia.co.uk, and will be speaking at a Doctor Who conference next September. So are you doing that like actually next September? Or are you taking a time machine like okay, so Hamish is going to do a little reading for us, but I thought I would maybe just ask him a few questions, and he can give us a few answers. Hamish, perfect. Wait, I'll call, and then you can come.
Okay. You'll go over here, and I'll. Okay.
So I was just wondering, Hamish, what are some of the major themes that you feel connect the stories in this particular collection?
Okay. Well, first of all, okay, that is a good question, because it is something that I grappled with quite a bit when I was writing, because it is like there are 9 stories in it, and they're sort of they were written from between 2004. One of them was actually in the class that I did with her and a couple of other people here. One of those stories is in here, and then there are a few others that I've written over the years and that kind of thing. So it's in some ways nothing connected. In some ways, but in other ways, everything. Really. But I think broadly, so nothing and everything. That's really all about it. No, I think that the other thing too is that, I tend to, I guess, write about the same sorts of things. You know, it is, I think it is funny how, how do you find that, Kurt? That you do find that you have the same sort of, unconsciously even, the same sort of themes that kind of are revisited. I think a lot of, I was quite surprised when I read online someone reviewed the book and they said that there was kind of this sort of nostalgic quality to them and this kind of regretful thing about how things are, which I didn't really think about, but I think that is something that I guess I do think of a lot. And it was not something, intentional. So I guess, for instance, when you write poetry, would you say that you have specific things that you bring to it, that you go out to, intend to, Yeah. Okay, very good.
I would say that.
All right.
But back to you, Hamish.
Okay.
So, I guess from what I remember, especially of your writers, there seems to be humor is a topic. What's your regard about humor in the book, or your approach to writing? Do you intentionally use humor, or is it that the circumstances just naturally develop that way?
Okay. Well, I guess so. It's kind of interesting because I suppose for me, I guess it's something, I think actually I found more that it's something of a kind of safety blanket in a way, in writing, that you kind of it's sort of I remember watching this sort of conversation between Larry David and Ricky Gervais, and basically Ricky Gervais sort of asked Larry David if he fancy doing drama ever or whatever. And Larry David said he didn't really know if he would be able to see how well anything would work in a dramatic framework, because you have that immediate thing of people laugh at it, and that it's maybe a little bit more difficult, to perceive how things work. So I suppose, some of the stories in this one are quite serious, but even actually I remember even when we were in class together, it's kind of peculiar, because the things that I guess you think people would take seriously, they kind of find funny, So, about me personally, people laugh at me a lot, I guess. So any personal small things like that are always kind of
Well, you know, writers definitely have to develop a thick skin, for sure. I guess you mentioned Ricky Gervais and another British comedian. Oh, Larry David. Oh, okay. Well, I guess maybe can you talk a bit about who some of your artistic influences are?
Let's see. I mean, lots of different things. I mean, actually, I think definitely like, I mean, you know, from the sort of literary side, I mean, you know, sort of Oscar Wilde and George Bernard Shaw and that kind of like late 19th, early 20th century sort of person, Henry James, you know, Noel Coward I really like. I was recently reading like some modern stuff. I mean, like about modern. But Jonathan Franzen is really good, actually. He did this one called Freedom, which is quite sort of like episodic and all over the place about American sort of life now. But I guess, I mean, I also really, I mean, film and things, really, I mean, like, you know, there are certain things that speak to me, I guess. Like, I mean, certainly, you know, you're speaking at the Doctor Who conference, and that's something that is, you know, just a huge influence on me, that it's kind of, it's actually a little spooky, really, how much and actually the thing I was thinking about that was, certainly Doctor Who and James Bond, which are just two of these things that I've always loved, and the more, I think the weird thing is that the more you try to sort of lead a life independent of these things that you love, the more you kind of realize that everything somehow connects back to them and you can't escape from it. So, I mean, I really am sort of like, you know, I will just randomly, I mean, you'll be looking to like Christopher Isherwood's, the book, I'm a Camera, that became Cabaret, and the dedicatee of that book, you know, I was like, oh, she played an old professor in Doctor Who. You know, so there, I mean, like, just anything I read, like, it just has these spooky connections to it. I can't escape it.
Maybe you're stuck in an episode now. So, well, now that you've had some insight into the writing of the book, let's give a huge round of applause for Hamish, who's going to share some of the work of the book.
Okay, so can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
When I move my head, do people not hear me? Is that like, do you hear me now? You don't hear me now, right? Okay. So I'll try to stay right here. Okay, good stuff. Well, anyway, really thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I mean, it truly is quite moving to see so many friends here. And So I wrote a book. Well, you know, collection of short stories, and it's called Madhouse, Only with More Elegant Jackets, which I know is a bit of a mouthful, actually, and I really love acronyms, and I did try to abbreviate it, but actually Zach, the person, I tried out the acronym of it, but it turns out into a Malmedge. It sounds to me like an old, you know, maybe a person without their dentures struggling with a piece of tongue. You know. So, I mean, as far as you know, it's a tough one. I mean, it's definitely like, I mean, Madhouse, I guess, is a good abbreviation. I know, my parents are here, actually, and you know, they asked me, why did you give it such a long, difficult to remember name, you know? And I, you know, just to put some context about why this is a somewhat baffling question, is that these are the people who named me Hamish Torkel Finley Crawford. So, you know, it's a little difficult, but so it is good though. It has actually, and I think I have proved them wrong because it has sold, let me tell you, dozens of copies. Dozens is a bit of an exaggeration, but certainly double digits, well up there. And it was actually when it first came out as an ebook, and it like on the Smashwords website, it was actually number 8, which, you know, did make me, you know, it's quite nice, but it did sort of make me ruefully sake, well, why do they have to be like 7 volumes of the year's best erotic short stories? I think they can call something. That's what I'm thinking. But it did give me quite a canny idea. So do watch out next year for the very cunningly reworded A Madhouse only with more erotic jackets. So anyway. So, I'll read a bit of the story, right? And the first one I'm going to read is Frankie McQueen, a potted biography, which is actually, Frankie McQueen is actually a real band in the city. And, so it's the story of their creator, may surprise you. So, Frankie McQueen, in an era blighted by committee-written synth pop, drug-addled celebrities, and Joaquin Phoenix with a hobo beard, represents a welcome ethos of integrity, of old-fashioned rap, and sounds so intense they leave shredded cerebella like blown roses in their wake. It is hard to believe how this legendary rocker has stayed out of the limelight to the extent that many believe him to be as fictitious as Sam W. Archroyd, Chris Gaines, and the Eagles' farewell tour. But real he is, and for him, the road to stardom has proved rockier, steeper, and more covered with unexpected pointy bits than most. Born Franklin Delano McQueen in Glasgow to respectable haberdashers Jock and Fiona, the rock icon of the 21st century could not have started less auspiciously. While his future seemed to lie in making hats with his doting parents, Frankie knew that early 80s Scotland needed a new sound to go with the vibrancy of deep-fried Mars bars, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and feeble gags about kilts. After being expelled from 3 schools for refusing to take part in knife fights, he landed a gig as studio engineer for seminal post-punk jazz fusion band, the Baked Bean. McQueen had no sound mixing experience, but for the Baked Bean, any recording session that ended with a full complement of drum kits and teeth was a result. For the next year, McQueen guided the Baked Bean through notable successes such as Funky Fucker, You Say Funk, I Say Fuck, and what's the name of the next fucking song? But McQueen knew when to move on. The Baked Bean's popularity was waning, partly because no one could tell their songs apart, and more tragically, his hard living took its toll. Legend has it that McQueen can be heard vomiting into the lead guitar towards the end of Fuck Funk. Whereas vomiting in the workplace is now frowned upon, in the mid-'80s it was a lucky break. How else can we explain the music of Air Supply? Record executive Julius Gerrer, thrilled by the audacity of the stunt, offered McQueen a contract. He moved to Canada and toured for 3 months before he picked up a guitar. McQueen's learning technique was typically idiosyncratic. He's the only musician to have learned his instrument by osmosis, in this case standing very close to Neil Young over a period of 2 months. But it worked, and before long, Frankie had broken records across the country. Unfortunately, he did this by smashing the vinyls over his head, which was largely his sales. With this misunderstanding out of the way, McQueen achieved new heights of popularity. A touching moment opened his return to Glasgow in 2003. Jock and Fiona appeared on stage and presented him with a bed, a reconciliation that brought Frankie to tears and brought many fans to tears when he went to get a coffee with his parents instead of playing the show. Currently living with his 5th wife, 71-year-old canasta player Dame Cora McQueen, McQueen's salad days are behind him. Gone is the impetuous rabble-rouser who lit his trousers on fire while snorting a line of ants. His posterior is still tender to this day. The accolades keep coming, though. Enemy rave. Frankie McQueen makes me wish a write-up in Enemy meant anything anymore. While Rolling Stone ranks him 15th, and we just make up these lists to piss people off, you know. There is a touch of Lady Gaga in McQueen's endearing strangeness. In this case, he believes his songwriting genius will escape through his nipples, and so has worn a sports bra on stage for many years. This also helps to combat the inevitable upper body sagging that many aging rock stars are prone to. But there can be fewer, more gracious rock stars. Frankie will stop and chat to any fan passing him in the street, including some who have never heard of him. On stage, he continues to make magic and selflessly blame any mishap on his backing musicians, and barring ill-advised experimentation with the lute. We can only hope he will continue producing hits for many decades to come. Good.